The British military. I'm pleased to say we've got Claire joining us on the phone now. Afternoon to you, Claire.
Hello, good afternoon.
So what got you started thinking, do you know what, I fancy writing myself a blog?
Well, basically, I ghostwrote wrote a book, and within that book you have a sort of degree of editorial control over you, and I just wanted to write something where nobody had any control over what I said.
And it's kind of looking at the sort of misconceptions about military life. Do you think many people do have that idea of military life that isn't quite right and the one that you experience?
Well, I think that there is a perception of what a military wife is like, and there's a very sort of stereotypical perception of that, there's a lot of, Laura Ashley dress wearing, pearls, flower arranging at the mess, and the wife is very much a sort of, Martha Stewart homemaker character who is very nosy and lives with her husband's rank on her sleeve. And I think that is the common perception of what an officer's wife is.
And having read your blog, you don't exactly fall into that category, do you, Claire?
No.
So tell us about the things you write about in your blog.
I mean, I tend to sort of, it depends how I'm feeling, really. I write about lots of different things, really. I talk about the complexity of being married to a man who is very ordered and command and control orientated, whereas I'm a very sort of pacifistic, feminist, chaotic individual. So I talk about the sort of conflict that can often cause, and also the fact that I am very independent and my husband is very hierarchical, and so we sort of constantly debate who's in charge, really, or why I don't do as I'm told. Do
you know what, I want to play Paula Abdul and Opposites Attract now, because that appears to be your kind of life feeling. Do you write something every day, or is it just when sort of mood takes you?
Well, I have to work as well, so I try and sort of slot it in between earning a living. So I tend to blog about 3 times a week, I think, on average. I sort of try, you need to, in order to retain the audience, you need to have a certain degree of frequency. I've been blogging now for 18 months, and I sort of tend to do it about 3 times a week, or I have to let people know that I won't be blogging for a certain period of time if I have to have a holiday. So, but actually, to be honest, I find it really addictive. I could blog a lot more. I could blog more than I do, really.
It's just work getting in the way, I guess.
Work does tend to get in the way, yes. But no, I love it because I love the freedom of it. That you can say exactly what you want. Within libel, obviously, there are sort of legal constraints over what you can say, but ultimately you get to say what you want on your blog, and that is very liberating. It'd be like you being able to say exactly what you wanted on your radio show.
Oh, don't tempt me, Claire, now. Don't take me down that road. So has your husband commented on your blog about some of the things you've said? Has he ever gone, Claire, you sure you should have said that?
Well, he's a character on the blog. He's Hagar the Horrible, and sometimes he comments, sometimes he hides, and it depends, really. It's not a case of whether I should or shouldn't say it. You have to have a certain degree of responsibility when you're married to the military anyway, because there's things called OPSEC, which is operational security, and there's things called PERSEC, which is personal security. So you have to try and operate within the boundaries of that, and obviously there's only a certain amount of yourself that you want to reveal, because that makes everyone's life a little bit vulnerable. But then at the same time, the military community does have an open blogging policy, so everything I do is within the MOD guidelines in terms of their blogging recommendations. There is actually a defence security notice about blogging.
And do you know who reads your blogs? I don't know how blogging actually works. Do you have any idea how many people are reading it, or whether it's other sort of military wives like yourself that are reading it?
The military community finds it very difficult to read it. There is a culture in the military that you don't, first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. So there's this very much sort of closed door approach that what goes on in the mess stays in the mess type of culture. So that this blog does tend to sort of kick back against that. But I get basically 3,000 unique visitors a month. So I get 100 unique visitors per day, but probably around 200 visits per day to the blog. So, I mean, it has a fairly sort of strong audience. And people keep coming back as well.
Sure. And what does it do for you to help with you know, for anyone that isn't in the military, it's difficult to kind of get your head around what it must be like to know your husband is out in Afghanistan at the moment. Is it a way for you to help him cope with the situation?
I do find it quite cathartic, because I think part of it is because people quite often say to you, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you cope with being married to the military. But then they follow that statement up often with, oh, well, you must be used to it. And I think part of the sort of rationale for it is, well, sometimes I don't know how I do it, because sometimes it is really stressful. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into before I got into it, because who knows what it's like to have children until you have children. And I think, you know, to be honest, many people, if they knew what it was really like to have children, would maybe think twice sometimes about having them.
What are these parents nodding in front of me? I mean, talking about coping, I read an article, because you also wrote an article in the Wiltshire Life magazine, and it was about how your power, your electricity power had gone, and it meant that actually for a while you were sort of away from news. And it just got me thinking, because that must be a weird and almost a guilt-ridden experience, because, you know, if you hear about, you know, terrible tragedy happening in Afghanistan, there must be that, you know, the pit of your stomach, or someone knocking on a door you're not expecting, and you're thinking, please don't let it be him. And then when you hear it's not, and there's a relief, but of course it means it's another family that's been suffered and touched by this.
Yeah, I mean, that particular incident where I had a blackout was a blessing, really, because I didn't have to deal with everyone else's reaction, because I knew in advance that it wasn't my husband that had been shot down. So, and then the news rolled out retrospectively. That was a blessing. But I have had situations where, you know, people have been sat at their windows looking out to see who's going to walk up the path, and knowing that there was an incident in Bosnia when 2 helicopters got shot down, and I knew the wife of one of the pilots that was shot down, and the other pilot. And one of them was killed and one of them wasn't, and both wives were sat inside of their house waiting to see whose path the padre walked up. And so those are the sort of stresses of being part of the military that are very difficult to articulate, really. And my blog is much more. It's not as black and white as, you know, life is tough. I sometimes try and make sense of it. I'll try and make sense of, you know, the differences in our perceptions, because my husband and I have very different perceptions on the world and very different perceptions of how life should be delivered. And it's just that, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily something that's unique to the military.
No, I think there's a lot of couples kind of thinking, yes, we can understand that. Just tell us, what do you call your 2 children on your blog?
My 8-year-old boy is called the Grenade, and the reason he's called that is because when he was a toddler, he could turn over a room in 30 seconds. It was like something. And my 3-year-old is called the Menace, because she is like the silent, covert disaster maker. So, you know, you'll sort of be sat doing something, and then you'll look up, and then you'll discover an entire packet of washing up powder has been liberally scooped around your kitchen, and it's just those or that she's emptied a whole tub of Sudocrem and smeared it all over her body and the walls. It's just like, Sudocrem is really viscous. It's really difficult to get off.
Who knew? For people
Exactly.
who want to follow your blog, what's the website address we follow?
It's AMMMTV.com. So I'm blogging at AMMMTV.com, and I'm every other month now in Wiltshire Life magazine. So I'm page 63 of the October edition, and then I shall be doing an article for the December edition, which is going to be I've got to do something festive. So I'm thinking I'm actually going to be, maybe going to be a bit more stereotypical, because I'm thinking I might do a Christmas ham.
Oh, bless. We knew it'd come to you eventually.
Or maybe I'll do something really radical, I don't know, like Spam Christmas.
We will wait with bated breath. Clare Macnaughton, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to follow Clare's blog, but it's a kind of alternative to military life here in Wiltshire, a modern military mother, all one word, .com, to follow that blog.
Travel. BBC Wiltshire.
16 minutes to 4. Let's see what's happening on the road.